For this segment, what we're going to do is the following. The first thing we're going to look at is the definition, and that will be in your textbook. I'm not going to be following along with your textbook. I'll be referring to it later. We're going to be talking about the approaches and strategies that we have on the board. So if you want to make an outline for yourself of what we have, these are the approaches and the strategies we're going to be talking about. We'll then talk about responding to misbehavior. We'll be looking at a hierarchy of responses that you can make to student misbehavior, and then we'll talk about your homework. All right, so first, let's talk about a definition. What is classroom management? It is a complex set of behaviors that the teacher uses to establish and maintain classroom conditions that are going to enable your students to learn. That definition is in your textbook. All right, classroom management is very much situation specific. What do I mean by that? Lauren?
Oh.
Yes.
That's not going to be the same thing every time.
Yes, but let's get more specific. It's not going to be the same thing every time. Yes, it's not going to be the same thing every time.
For every student.
Not only for every student, but certainly for every class. It goes according to the situation itself. There is a process that we can follow to be proactive with classroom management. And this is the process. First of all, you need to specify your desirable classroom conditions. Specify your desirable classroom conditions. What might those be in a school media center?
No running.
Okay, you don't want students running.
It might be the seating arrangement.
Exactly, it might be the seating arrangement that you have. Let's follow up on that idea with the facility. All right, what else about your facility in that school library, that school media center, could you specify as a desirable classroom condition? Somebody besides, yes.
That everyone's facing you, or are we still on the same subject of
Yep,
seating?
yep.
So everyone's facing you.
Okay, good. Everybody's still facing you, that everybody is facing you and you're not talking to anybody's back. What else?
You want to make sure that there's no areas of the library that you or your assistant can't watch.
Exactly. That you are going to see everybody, even when these kids are up out of their seats. Remember how our strategies work. The child does not just do seat work. They are out using the resources. Okay, what else?
Like maybe where the resources are arranged in relation to where the students are. Like
Exactly, exactly. That you have easy access to the resources. Not only to the books or the databases or the reference sources or the internet that the kids might be using, but to the supplies that they're going to be using. If you expect students to use graph paper, or if you expect students to use magic markers or colored pencils or crayons or scissors or whatever you expect them to use, have them where the kids could get to them easily. All right. So you're going to be looking for, in the school media center, for your desirable classroom conditions as ease of movement to different areas. You're going to look at your ability to change your furniture, especially your tables and chairs, depending on your purpose, whether you have your students working in groups, whether they're working in pairs, whether they're working individually, whether they're going to be facing you or working in their own small groups. And they should have appropriate access to the technologies that you're using, whether they're book technologies or whether they're other kinds of technologies. And the other thing that nobody mentioned was to have enough of the resources for the students. Now that doesn't mean you have to have 35 books necessarily, but you have to make sure that every student is going to have a resource to use. So those are desirable classroom conditions, and in this process, that's the first thing you do, is you think through those desirable classroom conditions. Secondly, analyze what your classroom conditions are. And if you see something that needs to be fixed, then by all means go ahead and do it. The third thing is to select the classroom management strategies that are going to work for you in the classroom situation that you're going to find yourself. And that's going to be the province of today's class. Of the range of classroom management strategies, which are going to work for you with your teaching style, as well as there are particular situations that some strategies work better than others. And the last part of this process in classroom management is assessing the effectiveness of the strategies that you've used. So let's talk about a variety of approaches and strategies within the approach. Your textbook does not divide up all of the approaches to classroom management that I'm going to be talking about today. What this chapter has done is taken the whole wide variety of approaches we have, and there are going to be 8 of them that I'm going to be talking about, and coordinated them into the 3 main approaches. That's what you're going to find in your textbook. All right, so the first approach we're going to be talking about today is the authoritarian approach. And it sounds very dreadful, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Whoa, the teacher is going to be an authority. Well, yeah, you are the teacher. You will be the authority in that classroom. The idea behind this approach is that student behavior is controlled by the teacher. Teacher knows best. Teacher is in charge. The main idea behind this approach is to create and enforce classroom rules and regulations. And it's really not as dreadful as it sounds. And the strategies within this approach that really work in the School Media Center are the ones that I have here. And these are the ones we're going to be talking about. There is a proponent, you know, a researcher, somebody who has written a lot and studied this particular approach. And the names of these people are Cantor and Cantor, C-A-N-T-E-R, Cantor. And they developed this authoritarian approach into something called assertive discipline. I'm bringing that out to you because you may hear when you get into your schools that this school uses the assertive discipline approach. This is the approach. These are the proponents. It's Lee Cantor and Cantor, who's his wife. All right, and what assertive discipline says is that the teacher has the right to establish clear expectations, limits, and consequences. That the teacher should insist on acceptable behavior from the students and then follow through with an appropriate reward or consequence. Now the Cantors have been very good about developing videos. So Sometimes what teachers do, classroom teachers, in order to get more credits, their staff development credits, they will use the Cantor's videos on assertive discipline for an in-service credit. All right, you have to get permission from your school districts ahead of time to use videos, but the Cantors have lots of them. So it's an interesting way to get staff development, but especially if you want to hone in a little bit more for this particular approach. So let's see some of the strategies in this particular approach. The first one is establishing rules. All right, and what are these rules going to be? These rules are going to be the limits that you're going to have in your classroom by you telling the students what is expected of them and why you expect it. Now, there are a variety of approaches that people take to this. There are some teachers who say, well, I want my classroom to be more of a community. I want the students to have input into these rules, which is all very well and good for a classroom teacher. You guys don't have the time to do that. You either see your students once a week, or you see your students once whenever your classroom teachers want to bring them to you. So I think the most efficient and effective thing for you to do is to establish your own rules ahead of time. And so your next question to me should be what should they be? I have a handout for you that this handout looks at, it says standards from exemplary teachers, but these are really like rules. Now there are some parameters about rules. First of all, they should be realistic. They should be simple and well-defined. They should be limited in number. Can't have a lot of rules. 3 to 5 is a really good number to have for rules. They need to be clearly understood by your students. And the other thing I'm going to say is you must establish rules at the beginning of the school year.